Hi guys, my name is Irene and I'd like to share a small devotion over something I learned from Queen Esther's story and Mordecai at the time when Haman had passed a decree to destroy the Jews in all the land of Persia and the surrounding places. And in chapter 4 of Esther, it says, when Mordecai learned all that had happened, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city. He cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went as far as the front of the king's gate, for no one might enter the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province where the king's command and decree arrived, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. And many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So when you continue to read still chapter 4, the maids and the eunuchs that were concerned for Esther went and told her what had happened. And Esther sent clothing to Mordecai. And Esther sent clothing to Mordecai because he had torn his clothes, he was in sackcloth, he was mourning and all that. But Mordecai refused it. And I believe, in this moment, Mordecai did not need clothing. He needed Esther to rise up to the occasion as queen. And that's when you hear, then Esther told him, Mordecai told Esther what Haman had done and all that. So all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that any man, this is Esther saying, any woman or man who goes into the inner court to the king who has not been called, he has but one law: put all to death except one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter that he may live. Yet I myself have not been called to the king these 30 days. So they told Mordecai these words. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, do not think in your heart that you will escape the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. If you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews, and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. It will actually come. But you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? And that is when Esther was like, okay, tell all the Jews, pray and fast for me. But before that, Esther is queen at this time, and she actually has access to the king, and that is what Mordecai is telling her. You have access to the king. Do not fear. You might say, oh, but I've not been called. Oh, but this. And Mordecai is saying, but honey, you're the queen. He will definitely hold it. That's not what he said, but I think he was thinking he will definitely hold out the scepter for you, because if you do not and you keep quiet, someone is going to die and you will be part of that someone, and someone else will come and deliver the Jews. For sure he will, because that is who God is. And I think it brought me to, do we cover people's sorrow, wanting it to end but not addressing the real issue? Are there times when a person comes to you and you'll address that surface issue, and yet there's an underlying issue? Do we actually take time to examine that? Like Esther saw Mordecai was not clothed, so he wanted to give him clothes, and yet Mordecai was saying, hey, there's something more that is within you that I need. And God is saying there is something within you that he needs to come out, and not what you're giving. So are we taking time to discover that? Yeah. So he needed Esther to plead for mercy for her people. But Esther feared that if she went to the king and summoned, as the law states, she would die. But did she die? Did she? Sometimes we will go by the rules, the laws, the principles that have been existent. And yet God is telling us, no, we're in position to defy the status quo because of our relationship with the king. The king will not let us perish. He will lift his hand and cover us, and he will raise us up as the enemy comes at us like a flood. The Bible says that he lifts up a standard for us. You're an Esther. male, female, it is within you. You have been called to greater things. And do not think for one moment that if you do not raise up to the occasion, something will remain undone. It will not. It will pass by you and go to the next person that God has ready, and they will do it. But God is telling you, go.